Good afternoon. We'll be starting in 1 minute. We're just waiting for all the participants to join us. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting in 1 minute. Right. I believe we can start. Other participants will be joining us as we go along. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for joining us to this first event, which is part of a series of events. We titled them as Getting Ready for Brexit series webinars. Allow me first and foremost to introduce myself. My name is Andre Fenek. I'm the head of policy here at the Malta Chamber, and I will be the host for today's event. We are very excited for this session, which will, as I told you already, will form part of a series of events. Allow me to thank all the speakers who have joined us today. We have a packed program ready for you with very interesting topics to discuss. A word of gratitude definitely goes to Mr. Glenn McAuliffe and Mr. Leandro Borch from the EU Coordination Department within the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs and their team for their constant collaboration on the setting up of this series of events. Only last Thursday, in collaboration with the same ministry and the Parliamentary Secretary for European Funds, we launched a campaign on the government's Brexit Readiness Action Plan. Over the next days, all Malta Chamber members will be receiving a document at their work address highlighting the most important areas, including transport, travel and connectivity with the UK, and it will also refer to the rights of citizens, both Maltese living in the UK and British citizens residing in Malta. On trade matters, the document provides information on the impact of the rules for the import and export of goods and services, the impact on the professional qualifications of employees, and also on the new procedures and tariffs that will apply as of 1st January 2021. With less than 7 weeks remaining to the end of this transition period, I once again urge, as the President said during this launch of this campaign last week, I urge once again operators to take the necessary action and make sure that all is in place, that contacts with UK suppliers and buyers is made immediately, and that there is a continuation of business from January onwards. With a no-deal Brexit being a very realistic possibility, we must make sure that businesses are ready for this change. And that is why we're amongst others, we are organizing this series of events. The Malta Chamber, of course, remains hopeful that a deal is reached before the deadline, but this does not mean that we should sit on our laurels waiting. Today's first session will be dealing with customs, trade and logistics matters. We have received a lot of interest from our members on this subject, and we've been receiving a lot of inquiries on this matter. And I immediately introduce the list of speakers we have with us today, starting with Mr. Leandro Borch from the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs, Mr. Ian Muscat, Director of International Affairs and Policy at the Customs Department, David Sammoud, Director, International Economic Policy within the EPD at the Ministry of Finance. We have Mr. David Fleury-Soler, who is also the chairman of the Chamber's Logistics Business Section. And from Transport Malta, we have Mr. David Caruana, Manager for Driver and Vehicle Licensing, Mr. Kenneth Patch, also a manager within the same department. And later on, we will have, oh no, has joined us in the meantime, Mr. Ivan Sammoud, who is the Chief Officer and Registrar General at Transport Malta. I remind all the viewers that from a technical point of view, I remind you that those who are watching us from home or their office to make use of the Q&A function, which you will find at the bottom of your screen for any questions during the whole duration of the event. So I urge you to make use of this Q&A function. And from a visual point of view, we also ask you to click on the speaker rather than the gallery view for a better visual experience of the event. Without further ado, I invite Mr. Borg, Mr. Leandro Borg, for his some introductory comments from his side, and we'll immediately then move on with Mr. Ian Muscat from Customs for his delivery. Leandro.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you, Andrea, and the Malta Chamber. Of course, these are very important webinars. The government is very looking forward to get the message across. We're trying to get businesses as ready as possible. It's very important for us as well to get the message across. Obviously, we're not trying to panic anyone, but as you very well said, we're 7 weeks away and we have to prepare. The reality is that the status quo will not be maintained. So we have to act now. For those of you who do not have quite a good background on the situation, we have been negotiating at EU level now for quite some months. We had 9 formal rounds of negotiations, and we have some progress. We have some good progress, but we have some points of divergence, and the negotiations are a bit limited at the moment. What is for certain is that the transition period will not be extended. So the UK had the possibility of extending the transition period, but they expressly refused to do that in July, and they intended to carry on with the negotiations, whether we will make it till the end of the transition period or not. What is certain as well is that there will be impact on every sector come 1st January, and it will be in every scenario. So whether there will be a deal or not, there will be some form of impact. And in any case, it's irrelevant at this point if we manage to agree or not. So we still have to prepare well, and that is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to give our citizens and the businesses some important information that they need to be aware of. And as you very well said in the document that we launched last week, we tried even to give some recommendations of what is expected of citizens and businesses at this point, and what the government will be doing in the last remaining weeks of this year. So from our end, we're trying to give the tools to everyone to be able to prepare well. We launched the Brexit 153 helpline again. We have a functioning mailbox which remained active all throughout the year. We launched this document. We have a website which is active and is being updated, and we have our social media account which is being updated every day with new posts and new information. So we urge you to follow us as well, to be able to get this new information. From our end, these are 3 very important areas. So maybe that is why we put it in the first webinar. I'm sure that customs is one of the most important areas for businesses, and here we will have some new realities come 1st January. There will be new procedures in place. And here we have Mr. Ian Muscat, who will be able to elaborate further and even maybe talk as well on the training and on the support that we're giving businesses. Then regarding trade, obviously, there will be some potential tariffs. There will be impact, and here we have Mr. David Sammoud, who will be able to explain a bit further. Regarding transport and logistics, I think it's important, maybe for businesses as well, to look into the new procedures that will be followed on the UK side. So I think we can give some more information as well on that, but it's important for businesses as well to look into these matters and clarify what procedures will be followed come 1st January, because there might be some delays. Obviously, as I'm sure you're already aware, there will be delays in transportation. For now, that's it from my side. Let's leave it for the speakers to elaborate further.
Thank you so much, Leandro. And once again, thanks for your collaboration over the last few weeks to organize these events. I immediately pass on the floor to the first speaker of today's event, Mr. Ian Muscat from Customs, to deliver his explanation. Ian, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Andre, and good afternoon to everyone. Since early 2018, the Customs Department has engaged in a full program of preparatory work in the event of UK's withdrawal from the European Union. The department's approach since then, and actually it has remained the same since then, was that we had to prepare for an eventual withdrawal of the UK from the EU without a deal. As things stand right now, this is very much a reality, and actually all our stations are prepared for this eventuality. Essentially, what does this mean? It means that all imports and exports to the United Kingdom after the end of the transitional period, which is by the 31st December of this year, will have to go through all the customs formalities as if these imports and exports were originating or are bound to another third country, say from the United States. So this means that all imports and exports have to be covered by an import and export declaration, and they are subjected to payment of duty, VAT, and where relevant, excise duties. This applies to all modes of transport, be they air freight, sea freight, parcel post, etc., with the relevant exemptions of low value consignments that can be applied for courier parcels and post. And in practical terms, if say one is to import a vehicle from the UK, whereas nowadays they don't pay any duties or VAT upon import, from 1st January 2021, a 10% duty rate is applicable. Also, VAT has to be paid upon importation. Likewise, clothing will be subject to 12% duty and the associated VAT. whereas a consignment of rubber tires, for example, has to pay a 4.5% duty, 18% VAT, and 70 cents per kilo in excise duty. I brought these three different commodities because I'm aware that there's a lot of commerce of these products between the UK and Malta. Industry will be impacted. Industry, when I say industry that sources particular raw materials from the UK, because if nowadays these raw materials were not subject to any duties or formalities upon import, they will be subject to customs formalities like any other goods. However, industry, those industries that source raw materials from the UK may apply for duty relief upon importation of raw materials under the inward processing procedure. I mean, if they source raw material from the UK to transform it in another product, they can benefit from import duty relief for the eventual export of the ultimate product produced. Just to put everyone's mind at rest, the department's approach towards when the UK leaves or becomes a third country for goods being imported and exported from the UK, it will not be a blanket-wide approach on examining each and every consignment. That will not be our approach. We'll be dealing with goods coming from the UK and goods going from out of Malta, being exported out of Malta towards the UK on a risk management approach. So we are not anticipating to check each and every consignment, but we will check those consignments which we think or we envisage might pose a higher risk. So, okay, so there will be additional controls, but it will not be a blanket-wide control system from our end. As for passenger traffic, inbound passengers from the UK will have to opt whether to pass through the green channel or the red channel. They cannot pass through the blue channel, which is the EU channel. So upon arrival into Malta, the physical choice of passing through either the red or the green channel is a declaration in itself. So a passenger opting to pass through the green channel is declaring that he or she has nothing to declare to customs, whereas a passenger opting to pass through the red channel is declaring that I have things to declare to customs. As I told you before, passengers from the UK cannot use the blue channel. That is reserved for intra-community transfer of passengers. Possible preparations for the trade sector. If there are economic operators that up till now have only dealt with the UK for acquiring their goods or exporting their goods, or else they have only dealt with the EU for such activity, and they do not hold an AORI number with customs, that means that they have not dealt with imports or exports to third countries till yet. If they want to do trade with the UK, they are encouraged to approach customs and acquire an economic operator registration identification number. That's what we term as the AORI number. This will allow them to lodge the eventual customs declarations associated with imports and exports. Another initiative that we encouraged, even though there wasn't really much uptake, but which we still encourage operators to take this opportunity, is to encourage economic operators to apply for authorized economic operator status. The status has several trade facilitation incentives, and actually there are both there from a secure side and as well as an expedite release out of customs. There is a whole procedure to be followed when applying for economic operator authorized economic operator status. It's not something which is done overnight. So if there are economic operators who wish to apply for this status, we encourage them to check our website, fill in the necessary forms, and contact the office that handles these applications. As for training, we also over the past 2 years communicated with the trading community and informed them that, especially those who have not up till now dealt with import and export formalities, again, especially those traders that never dealt with import and export formalities for goods coming or going to third countries, and who actually will actually wish to lodge the import and export declarations of goods being imported or exported from and to the UK, to apply for training, to familiarize themselves with our national import system and our national export system and the associated formalities. Traders wishing to do so are still in time. We up till now we have trained around 80 people. Even though we made several made several requests or adverts to traders to apply for training. Lately, we haven't received any other application, but we are willing to hold such a training even in the last 7 weeks of the year. So if there is a number, we can still hold such a training. One other initiative of the department was that of launching the online payment system, and this has picked up particularly well during the COVID crisis. So economic operators are encouraged to use the online payment system especially to expedite the release of goods out of customs. All associated information related to customs formalities associated with Brexit can be found on the Customs Department's website, which is www.customs.gov.mt. We have lately updated the website to make the Brexit tab more visible in the main menu, whereas before it was a two-stage approach. Now you can, when one visits our website, you can just click on Brexit and there's all the associated information there. I encourage all traders that have difficulties to go through the information that we have on our website. Actually, over there you can find all the information that was communicated by the EU, as well as notifications by the Customs Department. In any case, our main office for dealing with queries associated with Brexit is our front office. Our front office can be reached through email on the following address, which is front-office, one word, .customs@gov.mt. I repeat, front-office.customs@gov.mt. Or else on telephone numbers 25685 120 and 123. I think that was all from my end. It was just a general overview of the preparatory work and what needs to be done upon the eventual withdrawal of the UK from the EU. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to address them. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. As you presume, of course, anything dealing with customs has brought about a number of queries from our attendees. If you'll allow me, maybe we'll quickly go through some of them. And I remind the audience to submit their questions in the Q&A section, not in the chat line, in the chat function. So if you don't mind just putting them in your Q&A function instead of the chat. Maybe, Ian, I'm not sure if this was answered already during your presentation, but to answer a number of questions actually that were raised, where can operators find the the WTO duties that will apply as of 1st January in case, of course, of a no deal? If we can maybe circulate either a link or even after the event to all the attendees, that would be excellent, of course, because there's a list, of course, of duties pertinent to the different type of products.
So all rates of duty are available on the tariq, tariq.eu. If you click on tariq.eu, there will be all the relevant duties. Now, up till now, the UK duty is not visible, but it will be visible from 1st January. But essentially, the same rates of duty apply to all third countries. Okay. Then there will be the additional measures that will not apply for the UK. For example, if there is an anti-dumping tariff on ceramic tiles originating from China, that will not apply, obviously, for the UK, because those are country specific. But the rates of duty are harmonized across all third countries to the EU. So if, for example, a vehicle being imported from Japan carries a 10% duty, a vehicle being imported from the UK will still carry a 10% duty. Okay, so that's the same. Example, again, clothing originating from China carries 12% duty. Clothing that will originate from the UK will still carry 12% duty. So duty rates are harmonized across all third countries.
Thanks, Ian. Maybe two more questions very quickly. Someone is asking whether the VAT number would automatically count as the EORI number. And they're also asking on shipments in transit. So shipments which have been basically sent before the 1st of January, and whether these shipments in transit would be treated any differently from shipments coming after the 1st of January.
Okay. Your first question was on
EORI.
EORI. The VAT number is not, technically speaking, is not the EORI number, but so if one has a VAT number, has to bring all the relevant documentation to customs so that we will issue an EORI number. Now, the system that we apply is that as an EORI number, we retain the same number as the VAT number, but the two are different, even though we retain the same number. All right. So if one has a VAT number but does not have an EORI certificate, he or she must still approach us, and we will process the application. I believe it's one day process, and it's quite fast. So in a day it will be over and done with. The application must be lodged online. There is the relevant link on our website. As for goods in transit, let's assume this typical scenario: a container leaves the UK on the 27th of December, okay, and arrives in Malta on the 6th of January. Typical scenario. If there is proof that that particular container has left the UK prior to the 31st of December, then that importation is deemed to be an EU transfer, not an import. And if it left the UK before the actual withdrawal date, it will be treated as community goods just the same. Okay, so there's this transitional measure that will remain in place for the first few weeks of 2021. One is to ensure that the goods have left the UK. I'm stressing this point because we have to see the bill of lading, the actual bill of lading raised, and we must ensure that the actual vessel has left the UK by the 31st of December. This is a very important thing to stress. If one intends to import goods from the UK, we do encourage them not to leave everything for the last minute, so as not to be disappointed. There can be delays. Things like bad weather can be expected, and maybe goods do not actually leave the UK by the 31st of December. Then obviously, if they leave on the 1st of January 2021, they are to be considered as third country goods, and obviously import duties will be due on those goods.
Maybe the last two questions, and we'll immediately move on to the next speaker. As presumed, there will be a lot of questions, of course, from the customs side. They're asking whether you can elaborate on how the process to return items imported with the supplier's consent will work. I'm not sure if this is clear, Ian, on what is meant by the
I believe it's for typical scenarios where goods are sent to the UK for repairs to be returned. I am assuming that the question is
Specifically for printed material and the books, such as school books and books in general, I think, yes, and the other printed material.
I did not really get this.
Maybe the person who asked the question, Mr. Stephen Ajus, can elaborate on his question. We would appreciate that if you can.
Okay. I see the question now.
Okay. Maybe we can move to the next one. Okay. You mentioned risks during your presentation. Were you referring to dangerous goods or other types of goods?
No. When we say risks, we actually deal with a number of tools, be they fiscal, be they security issues, be they safety issues. So there are a number of elements that we have to consider for imports that need actually to be brought into balance before we release the goods for free circulation. So it's not just security; it's fiscal. It can be safety as well. If I may, I'll try to address Mr. Ajus's question. Honestly, I don't know the rate of duty by heart of printed matter, but Mr. Ajus can check it out on the tariff. It's similar to other third countries. What we have in Malta, which is particular to Malta, is that such printed matter carries a rate of 5% VAT only, not 18%. On the process to return items imported with the supplier's consent. I can't really figure out what this is really meant, but let's say if
I think he just elaborated in the Q&A. He's saying the question for return stocks is related to concessions ordered to us by publishers on returning stock ordered. So probably it's a very specific question to their sector.
Okay. If such goods are to be returned, I mean, export formalities are to be raised. I mean, if they are returned if on the other hand, goods are to be sent to the UK, for example, for repairs and to be returned to Malta, then there is the temporary export procedure to be followed, which essentially, if a good is sent to the UK for repairs and the same good is returned to Malta, duty is not paid on the actual good, but it's only paid on the value of repairs. Okay.
Thanks, Ian. Last but not least, and apologies if we don't manage to go through all the questions. Of course, we can then accumulate all the questions and we'll send them, of course, to the relevant speaker after the session. The last one is also very specific. Would yachts and aircrafts which were imported through the UK before Brexit need to be re-imported after Brexit so that they retain their EU status?
If goods imported into the UK before the withdrawal date are still in the UK by the withdrawal date and then are to be transferred, for example, to Malta after the withdrawal date, they have to be imported into the EU. So goods in the UK after after the 1st of January will be considered as goods in a third country. Okay. All these questions can be viewed, can be, the answers to them can be seen through the hyperlinks that we have listed in the notice to the general public and economic operators in October 2020, which is on our website. If you go into that notification, at the bottom of it, there are 2 hyperlinks, one in English and one in Maltese. One can click on them and search for the relevant answer to the pertinent question.
Perfect. Thanks, Ian. Again, apologies to those we didn't manage to answer during this brief Q&A session. We'll immediately move on to the next speaker. Maybe we'll have another brief Q&A towards the end of the session. We'll immediately move on to Mr. David Sammoot from the EPD within the Ministry of Finance. David.
Thanks, Andre, and thanks to also to you and to the European Union Coordination Department for organizing this. I think it is very important to get all the information right at this stage, and I think that this effort is really good. But it is also important to take ownership for these businesses to take ownership on this process too, in a sense, to get all the information right from the start. I would like to share a presentation with you. I'll try to skim through it without going too much into detail. Some of the information has already been provided by Ian. So, not sure if you're seeing the presentation at this stage. Great. So, just to add to what Ian has said before me, a few other things that I would add, apart from the tariffs, which are based on the most favored nation treatment, and basically this is what Ian was saying before. What tariffs are available for example, the US will be available for the UK. Basically, beyond that, there are other types of barriers. For example, like the customs procedures would be additional beyond what a simple transfer of goods from one member state to another would be. This is an administrative burden, obviously. There are additionally regulatory barriers, for example, sanitary and phytosanitary requirements. There are technical and non-technical barriers and regulations that are different across borders. So it's important to ensure that there is sufficient information on these procedures. I'd like to move on to the next slide, covering services. Even here, there will be differences. And basically, from an open market based on a common market based on freedom of movement of people and services and capital, now we're moving to something that is much more closed and will be depending also on the WTO General Agreement on Trade and Services. Under this agreement, you also have the most favored nation treatment clause. Basically, what you offer under this agreement is offered to all other members, and this is a lot less than what is offered in terms of market access obviously than would be the membership of within the Union. Adding to this, there are domestic regulation issues. there are recognition and equivalence issues, and having said so, there is no harmonization between, there might not be harmonization between the laws and regulations of the European Union and the UK, and probably as time goes by, there will be some divergence between the two, although once the UK leaves the Union, it still has a lot of regulations and standards that are similar to the unions at this point in time. However, as time passes by, this will be a bit different. Nevertheless, still there are recognition and equivalence issues. So, and in terms of investment, I'm not so worried about investment, cross-border investment from the UK to Malta, or from Malta to the UK, given that both economies are very open on UK. Still, there are the commitments taken in the GATS on investment and establishment, and there are also possible sensitivities. For example, where there are issues of security and public order, for example. So certain investments, if you want an investment to be made in the UK, in the United Kingdom, you might be subject to screening due to some sensitivities. And another issue that is important, there might also be some types of requirements being made by the UK in terms of, for example, performance requirements. For example, the number of employees that you want to have within a company in the UK, you need to have a certain amount of the employees being UK nationals, for example, and the other way around possibly. So there might be some discrimination, as long as it is not discriminatory in terms of the GATS. Basically, if there is a commitment in GATS, the UK or the EU and Malta will have to stick to those commitments. So we went into the data, the trade data between Malta and the UK, and we also analyzed the tariffs, the tariffs of the EU and the tariffs of the proposed tariffs of the UK. And basically, we tried to impose the tariff rates on the previous 6-year period of imports into Malta, and basically we ended up with this graph. For the total period, we would have actually paid 130 million in tariffs when importing from the UK. If we had to import those under the WTO tariffs, basically. So in 2014, we would have paid 17.72 million, and in 2019 we would have paid 24.48 million in tariffs. This amounts roughly to 5% of the import value. Going a little bit more into detail, I know that Ian has tried to identify this too, but just to give you a bit of an idea which sectors would be impacted most. Here we see that the most impacted would be the sector of cars and car parts, Chapter 87, and there we would have paid actually 23 million over the 6 years, because there's a lot of trade, and that's roughly 9%, a tariff rate of 9% on the total imports. This would be followed by dairy products, and the rate is very steep at 57%. This is the EU rate, basically, the EU tariff. But the value is a lot less than the cars sector, at 12.71 million. And so on. You can see articles of clothing, sugar and sugar confectionery. Again, there's another chapter on clothing, and preparation of meat of fish or crustaceans. That's another sector that would be hit with import tariffs when importing into Malta from the UK. Similarly, this would give you an idea of which sectors are mostly hit the highest with a tariff rate. For example, tobacco and manufactured tobacco, that would be impacted with a 61% tariff rate, basically. It doesn't have the totals, but it has the highest rates per sector, basically. The second area would be dairy products. The third area at 57%, it's quite steep, as I said. Sugar and sugar confectionery would follow at 48%. And meat products, that would be chapter 2 at 46%. So these are quite steep tariff rates, and anybody wanting to import from the UK would be facing these tariff rates.
Like David, some of the previous questions, and I believe you're answering them now, were related to importation of food products and food items. So
just to clarify, over here we've got chapters. So if anybody wants to find the exact tariff rate for a very specific product, for example, Stilton cheese, let's give an example, you'll probably find a tariff rate for Stilton cheese, or a more general, slightly more general categorization of cheeses with the same characteristic of Stilton cheese. So now I'm also going into the export data, and here we applied what the UK shared with us in terms of the tariff rates that they would impose on imports from other countries. I make this clear because it's not just from the European Union. They have to change their system, but they will apply this for all third countries, including the European Union. And basically, what we are seeing is that on the basis of the past 6 years, and that here I specify 2014 to 2019, basically, if we had to apply those tariff rates on the goods that we imported, we would be paying 2.6% of the total in tariffs, basically. And that obviously creates a bit of a wedge against the product, given the Maltese product or the European product, given that the cost is increasing. Analyzing this a little bit into more detail by product, we can also see that again, the section for cars and car parts is the most hit, basically, chapter 87. And here we're seeing an amount in tariffs of 7 million. I must specify here that these are imposed on trade that has already been done. So if you're imposing a 10% rate on something, there is a possibility that you can actually divert your trade elsewhere, given that there are, you can possibly take advantage of zero tariffs from somewhere else, for example, from within the European Union, or else from a country, trading with a country with which the European Union has a free trade area, free trade agreement. Anyway, looking at these products, we can also see that preparations of cereal and flour, starch, or milk, pastry cooked products, etc. That there we would be facing a 15% tariff rate. Articles of clothing, we would be facing a 12% tariff rate. Vehicles, I just mentioned this, but vehicles happens to be the most hit in terms of total value. And then there is a miscellaneous edible preparations. Obviously, there is a whole other list with tariffs, but these are the highest tariff lines. You may note that from the export side, we would be facing slightly lower tariffs. Finally, well, this is not the final slide, I must specify, but I make some considerations here. Basically, we will be facing increased tariffs on imports and exports. So this, but this would be limited to some sectors. It will be higher in some sectors, basically. So there also would be increased administrative barriers. There will be regulatory impediments and costs to place something on the market, whether it is from the UK into Malta or from Malta to the UK. And it will also be costly to maintain long-established value chains. So there is the possibility, as I said before, of some trade diversion because of the added costs. And there are obviously incentives to seek cheaper alternatives, basically. So, and this will also cost companies in terms of searching cheaper supplies. So finally, I added this slide to give basically to provide you with the possible websites, portals that you might want to use once the UK is outside. But I must specify the first two websites are very important in any case if you are trading, whether it is with the UK or whether it is with Japan or with the US or with Cambodia. The first two websites are very helpful for any trade. On the first website, you can also find the tariff rates in the destination country. So if I'm exporting a computer to the UK, over there you will find a lot of information in the form of, for example, tariffs, but not only. You will also find information on procedures to enter the market, for example, licensing procedures, or whether there are, for example, dual testing requirements for your goods, for example. I think there is a wealth of information, and it is important to get accessibility to this. I must state another point, and it is a bit of a sore point for me working in this environment. And I was looking, for example, at trade data, even to third countries with which the Union has a free trade agreement. We do poorly in accessing the preferences of free trade agreements, given that we're not using the facility to get origin status for our products. And even in the case of the UK, if there is a trade agreement, if there is a free trade agreement, one important point will be to get origin status for your products. If you want to get, for example, a preferential rate of 0% tariff. So I think this concludes my presentation, Andre, and thanks a lot again.
Thank you so much, David, and thanks for the insights. I think your presentation very much continued on what Ian was explaining, and of course you were giving the general direction of how the tariffs will be changing. So of course, I think I join you in urging, of course, any importers of UK products to potentially look and source for other suppliers from elsewhere, of course, because in the case of a no-deal Brexit, you will see that the tariffs will be increasing drastically for a number of goods and products. I appreciated that, of course, in such a short time, there will be a limitation for this to happen. But of course, I urge you to look into your supply chains and look whether you can start sourcing the products from any other markets. Again, in the case of a no deal exit. If I may, just one clarification, David, maybe you can clarify this. One question came in saying the 57% mentioned on dairy products, would this represent the percentage from all imports from the UK?
Yeah, yes, it would represent the total tariff. It's not a specific tariff. As I said before, here we're applying a tariff for a whole chapter, and within this chapter there are I'm not even daring to say the number of products, but there might be, for example, 600 or 500 products maybe. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there might be quite a lot of products by 8-digit numbers. Here we're talking 2 digits, and those 2 digits can be expanded to 8 digits and even 10 digits. Sure. Go into very, very specific products. As I said, for example, Stilton cheese would have an 8 or a 10-digit denomination under the common nomenclature codes.
Sure. And some other questions. Yes, I believe we will be sharing the presentations and the links provided by David and the other speakers after the session. So we'll be sharing these presentations after the session. By all means, if you have any other queries, even after the session, by all means, keep on contacting the chamber, and we will pass on these queries to the relevant authority. Another one, have I understood correctly that the average rate of duty, which would have been due, is 5% based on previous imports?
Yes, that is applied to total imports from the UK. So basically, we're just seeing the total tariff that would have been paid, and the total import that was actually done throughout that period.
Thanks, David. Realizing we're running very, very late. Maybe one last question for this part. Is excise duty calculated on the shipment value?
I wouldn't know this.
I think this is addressed to Ian.
Yeah.
Excise duties are calculated depending on the product per se. For example, whiskies and liqueurs are calculated on volumes. Tires are calculated on weights. There's a different approach depending on the product per se, on the commodity per se. Thanks,
Ian. Right. Without any further ado, I'll immediately move on to the next speaker. I invite David Fleury-Sore, the chairman of the Chamber's Logistics Business Section, to basically deliver his presentation, which will be focusing on cross-border movements from between the UK and Malta, and also the documentation required in terms of the logistics sector. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you for the presentation. I would like to thank the previous speakers as well. Most of them have covered a lot of the matter I'm going to discuss, but we will go over them as necessary. I'd like to share a presentation with regards the Brexit presentation I have prepared. Let me see if it is being shared. Are you seeing this?
Yes, we are, David. Maybe if you wish to put it on full screen, the viewers will be able from the bottom right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So everyone knows what's happening on the 1st of January of this year. Very unfortunate, or fortunate maybe for the British that voted to leave the EU. But the situation is as it is, and we have to make sure that we cater for the coming position that we need to take. Business will continue, but also business will have certain conditions to take on with regards to importation and exports from the UK. Export clearances will have to be done. That means there's going to be a process of export customs procedures, both from Malta and both from the UK. There are transit procedures also to be done when crossing the EU to arrive in Malta or in the UK, and also different procedures with regards to different modes of transport. So if you're talking about a sea movement by container, you have an export from Malta to the UK, so the export clearance is done in Malta, and the client receiving the goods in the UK will have to do his own customs clearance at destination. All of this will require documentation preparedness. People have to make sure, and I think someone did mention it, that there are certain rules to follow. One of the main rules being that all traders have to be registered with a VAT number, which is also an AORI VAT number. This can be applied to at customs very easily. And as I think Ian explained, it could be done within 24 hours. I understand also that in the UK as well, it can be done online. All right. And again, the process there is very fast. So that is, I think, one of the main issues that all traders have to be prepared as far as doing business or trading with the UK, since now it is a non-EU country. And non-EU country, meaning it is like any importation or exportation to China, to the US, or to any destination outside Europe. We were mentioning the sea movement, but obviously we do trade with the UK by air and also by road. And when we see road transport, it means we are dealing with more FMCGs, that means more fast-moving products, goods, all right? And also very important, both for our industry and also our importation and also exportation. You have goods that are foodstuffs, you have goods which are manufacturing products that need to be delivered on time with very short manufacturing processes that are needed. So it's very important that people are prepared that there won't be any significant delays for the movement of these goods. What do we mean by delays? Delays can happen on borders, even after an export customs clearance is done and it is shipped out. It can be stopped at the border between the EU and UK and vice versa. And that means you will have delays of the shipment arriving at destination. So over there, it is important that people are prepared before, knowing what documentation they would need under the customs classification code. All right. So, for example, if you're importing foodstuffs, you will most probably need a health certificate. Okay. You might need a phytosanitary certificates. You might need other certificates for CITES and for other products, even pharmaceuticals, for example. So over here, we have to be a bit intelligent and make sure that these certificates are needed pre-export or pre-importation. Right? In fact, we see processes already in the UK being implemented that you would not be able to load goods without having a customs clearance declaration done prior to loading. Right? There are processes that are still maybe not very clear. There are outlines and maybe need more explanation of how these are going to work. And I think the proof is in the pudding when 1st of January comes around, and let's hope that we do not have too many delays on the borders with regards to this documentation preparedness. The inspections and controls, I think Ian has highlighted these in his presentation. We do hope that the amount of inspections will be kept to a minimum, and I think Customs have confirmed that they will treat the UK as any other non-EU country, and therefore hopefully the amount of inspections on customs locally will be simplified and also very fast. Documentation, as I said, is key to the movement of goods. Okay, so when you are preparing importation from the UK, please make sure that your suppliers are already conversant with the requirements. All right. On the borders itself, the UK has applied certain processes, smart border processes, so they can move freely within the UK, going out of UK maybe into France. A lot of our goods are traveling by road, so there's a clearance process in the UK and also an importation process in Calais, for example, or in French ports coming from the UK ports. Most of these processes will rely on the effectiveness of the exporters in the UK. There is already talk about controls before arriving to Dover. There are going to be controls on the Kent roads that haulers and also exporters will have the right documentation in place not to create the expected jams going to happen in Dover and also in Calais. So hopefully that will make life a bit easier for everyone, because one person having a problem is going to be another problem for the people behind him, and the delays created by that situation. I also understand that the UK have simplified a bit matters and given a bit leniency to be fully integrated by July of next year. So if you are a UK importer or an exporter, you might have certain measures not being full implementation of checks and whatever, but not so much so on the European side, where you're going to have a customs clearance following all the WTO rules, as explained before by other speakers. I did mention foodstuffs. Foodstuffs might have a different procedure as well, because there is more duties and different tariff conditions being on importation into the EU. Right? So these have to make sure that they are well researched before business. Also, I think very importantly is commercial agreements. Commercial agreements are normally ruled by the Incoterms. The Inco rules will define the risks of the transport of cargo. It will define the costs, division of the transport of goods, and also define maybe the duties and taxes you will pay. the obligations also of the Incoterm rules define where customs clearances have to be paid, who is responsible, if it is the importer or the exporter, the seller or the buyer. So there are a lot of these conditions to be looked at and not to be taken lightly. Okay? Before, within the EU, although Incoterms do and still apply, even more when people are trading outside the EU. I think I've covered most of my presentation. Checks, like I said, please make sure that you are in communication with your supplier, okay, to make sure that the customs requirements are taken care of, mainly your invoicing, where you have to have an invoice with an AORI number, you have to have a good description of the goods, customs classification to those goods, and also mentioning the origin of the goods. All right, so these are important things that you might want to check before you are shipping out goods. I thank you very much. Should you have any questions, I'll be glad to help you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. One quick question. I'm not sure if this is more addressed to you and maybe to customs. So the question is, exports to the UK will change, of course. Shipping documentation from a simple CMR to a T2L documentation. Are there plans to switch T2L from a manual document to an online document, like we currently do for EX1 documentation? I'm not sure if David or Ian will wish to answer this.
The CMR is a shipping document, it's a transport document, and T2L is a customs document, so they're two different things. The T2L will not remain for sure. You know, it's a customs document. Ian, correct me if I'm wrong. The T2L was used only when the UK was in the EU. So if you're exporting from Malta, you will now need an EX1 document or another document which shows that the goods will be leaving EU and the point of exit, for example, by container will be Marshalllock in Malta, or Dover, Calais from a road point of view, and that is the point of exit of the EU. T2Ls will not be used. The CMR document, which is a transport document, will be continued to be used. I hope that responds to the question.
I believe so. And David, this is addressed, of course, to your sector. How will Brexit affect the importation process in terms of shipping and documentation costs? I would assume that there will be an impact there.
I mentioned in my presentation, I'm sorry I did not speak to it. Basically, I think it is very important that all traders are consulting both the customs broker and any relevant authority as to what they require. Yes, there will be a cost. There will be a cost with regards to the clearance processes, both in the UK and both on importation in Malta, and also might be a cost also within the transit and the cross-border inspections. So, yes, unfortunately, we do not know the depth of these costs, but it should be a documentation charge which will be related to a clearance process, over and above the duty and the VAT paid on importation.
Thanks, David. We'll immediately move on to the last. Whoops, I'm seeing Ian. Go ahead, Ian.
Sorry, just to clarify one point that that David highlighted. Actually, it's on the UK AORIs. David highlighted that a UK supplier has to have a UK AORI number. Just wanted to add on that UK AORI numbers will not be valid within the EU after the 1st of January 2021. That's just a point to highlight. It's not really just something to add on David. Okay.
Correct. It does not affect the import, but the exporter in the UK has to be registered for EORI. Correct, Ian.
Thanks, Ian and David. We'll immediately move on to the last speakers. I immediately would like to invite Mr. Ivan Sammoud from Transport Malta to give us some of his insights from his side. And this will be followed by Mr. Pach and Mr. Caruana from the driving and licensing unit within Transport Malta. Mr. Sammoud, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Chamber for this opportunity, because I believe we believe that Brexit obviously is on everyone's mind at this stage, and there are a lot of uncertainties that our industry, predominantly our industry, needs to be informed about as much as we can. And this is a disclaimer that we would like to make as an initial point. Obviously, what we are going to say in terms of shipping, and I will predominantly again focus on ship registration, because when it comes to shipping and trade, our colleagues from Customs and the Minister for Finance have already addressed. Obviously, all that we are going to discuss depends a lot on the outcome of the agreement or none that are put in place. But basically, when it comes to shipping and ship registration predominantly, which I understand is of particular importance, the first and foremost is the issue of eligibility of individuals to register their ships under the Malta flag, under the Merchant Shipping Act. Here, predominantly, we are talking about yachts, private yachts. As you well know, we have quite a number of private individuals from the UK citizens that nowadays, as EU citizens, are allowed to register their private yachts in Malta. That is quite a lion's share of the private and super yacht sector. And one of the first questions that comes to mind is what will happen after the 1st of January. Well, basically, our intentions, and in the coming days, we are going to promulgate legislation to this effect, is that UK citizens will continue to be allowed to register. Private UK citizens will continue to be eligible for registration of their yachts under the Malta flag. This is something that is already the practice, for example, with individuals residing in Switzerland. And in view of the very good relations that exist between Malta and the UK, this is something that we will continue to allow. Obviously, the Brexit will also bring a lot of opportunities for Malta. For example, one of the very important aspects is cabotage. As we well know, trade between EU ports is only allowed for EU-flagged vessels and EU-registered companies. And there we are facilitating a lot as a ship registry for companies that are nowadays, at the moment, based in the UK, and in order to continue on their trade patterns, trade operations, they are looking for an EU register, and there we are seeing a substantial number of companies showing a lot of interest in Malta and the services provided by Malta. Another important aspect that might also impact some Maltese individuals, since we know that a number of Maltese citizens have a certificate of competency as seafarers, a UK certificate of competency. So basically they have a license that they are an officer that can operate, that can work on board a vessel issued by the UK. Basically, since at the moment, the UK as a new member state, there is the issue of mutual recognition. Come 1st January, the UK will be considered as a third country. But the good thing about that is that Malta has already a bilateral agreement with the UK for the mutual recognition of both countries bilaterally. This agreement was enforced and continued to be enforced in terms of international conventions prior to Malta joining the EU. That agreement has still been in force, and basically we will go back to the pre-2004 conditions, and we will continue to recognize the UK certificates. One would ask, but what will this change? Obviously, we have to also go through a process with the European Commission for the recognition of the UK as a third country, but that is something that, again, the Commission itself is already taking into consideration into its negotiations, and we do not foresee any mammoth task there, since most of the certificates have already been renewed beforehand with a validity of a period of five years. So basically, the Commission has already stated that all UK certificates that will be valid come 1st January will remain valid until the end of their validity. Well, these are the main points that the eventual Brexit come 1st January will have a direct impact on shipping. We are following the matter very, very closely in close cooperation with the Commission. Hopefully, come 1st January, we will not foresee. We are not foreseeing any big or drastic challenges. Rather, we take this opportunity to urge, and we know that members of the chamber, especially the yachting section within the chamber, have been very actively, as they always do, in promoting the maritime services provided by Malta. And I think that we are already reaping some benefits at this early stage. And let's look at Brexit as an opportunity for the country in order to benefit from certain services that we will be in a position to provide. We will be in a very unique position since we will remain a new member state, and especially when it comes to yachting, having an EU flag is of utmost importance. Will remain available for any queries on the matter. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Samut. It's good to hear that at least there is some positive also coming out of the UK's exit from the EU, and there could be opportunities for a number of segments in this regard. Last but not least, I immediately invite Mr. Kenneth Patch and Mr. David Caruana from the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Department within Transport Malta to explain furthermore in detail the issues and challenges, of course, from their side.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Andre. Good afternoon, and thanks to the Chamber and everyone for this opportunity. It's a very good exercise to get to know what's going on. When it comes to Transport Malta, I will talk to you about driving licenses, okay? It will be quite a simple and straightforward process because there will be a memorandum of understanding which will allow the UK driving licenses to be exchanged for the Maltese. Now, I don't know if everyone is familiar with the current procedure. Within the EU, driving licenses can be exchanged, okay? Once that Brexit will happen, we'll have in place, as from 1st January, the facility and an agreement with the UK to recognize and accept each other's driving licenses. The process will be quite simple. There will be everything as very similar to what the current procedure for the exchange of EU driving licenses. So there should not be many problems when it comes to that. Obviously, once Brexit happens, and the UK is out, the UK driving license will have a non-EU status. So everything which applies to non-EU driving licenses within the Union, within the European Union, within Malta, per se, everything will apply to the UK. However, with the MOU, which will come into place, we'll be able to accommodate and to exchange UK driving licenses to Maltese without problems. When we say an exchange, this includes any category, standard, private cars, even for commercial, all categories will be given on the Maltese counterpart. And basically, what is in place now will be replicated to this MOU. There isn't much else from my part, because this is related to driving licenses, so I will be very brief compared to the others over here. However, if you have any questions or any of the attendees has any questions, whether it relates to the current procedure or what will come into place, please feel free to ask so that we can talk them right away, okay?
Thanks, Kenneth. David Caruana.
Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for this opportunity. When it comes to vehicle registration, mainly we have two scenarios, which are those brand new vehicles and those which are used vehicles, which currently have a high market from the UK. For the brand new vehicles, those vehicles that are manufactured in the UK will have to go in another country to get the type of approval. For example, if a vehicle is manufactured in UK, currently the type approval is issued with a standard E11, which represent UK. This will not be possible from 1st January. So these vehicles manufactured in UK has to be type approved from another country. Once these vehicles are approved from another country, these vehicles will be able to be registered in Malta. However, will be subject to customs because obviously these will be imported directly from UK. Obviously, we will ask for additional documents related to customs, and will include also the payments that will be made to customs. Even because when brand new vehicles are registered in Malta, we collect the VAT on registration. We will have to reduce the VAT that is already paid at customs. Mainly, that is the difference that will be applied in January for the brand new vehicles. When it comes to the used vehicles, there will be an additional charges, which is currently called the minimum tax, which is mainly applied for those vehicles that are imported from Japan. And from next January, we'll ask for additional documentation to confirm that vehicles registered in the UK can be registered in Malta. Currently, this type of documents are not demanded because it's an EU vehicle. But however, this procedure, which was currently mainly used for the Japan registrations have to add another document to confirm that although the vehicle was registered in UK, still it can be registered in another EU country. So technically speaking, since there is currently no body that will certify in UK, there will be little difficulties to register English UK used vehicles from January, unless there will be an approval from this body to confirm that these vehicles can be registered. Mainly, these are the changes that will be applied from next January. However, still, we'll be asking for more customs paper because there will be additional charges regarding duty that will be included in our selling price. From our end, regarding these are the changes, mainly.
Thanks, David. Thanks for those clarifications. Of course, we once again open the floor for any queries, mostly related to anything which was being stated by the Transport Malta officials. I think most of the procedures are quite clear in that sense. I'm not seeing any other queries. If I may, maybe just to close off, we'll go back to the questions we didn't manage to answer in the first part, and I think these are once again mostly addressed to Ian. Sorry, Ian, for this, but most of the queries, of course, are customs related, as we had presumed. We understood that there is an expedited clearance procedure for the importation of courier shipments. Probably it's something that even David could answer. Very sorry. What are the parameters which defines a shipment being able to undergo such an expedited clearance process?
Yes, actually, what we're trying to do, and actually this doesn't not really fall under my directorate, but in any case, I'll try to give a brief explanation. With regards to fast parcel operations, we're trying to, given that there will be a substantial increase of imports that obviously originate from the UK, we're trying to do batch releases in the sense that rather than doing a declaration for one consignment, we will do a declaration for example 20 consignments of different people, as long as they are a single item consignment. In a way, this will help the expedited release from customs. For further details on this issue, and if there are any courier operators listening, I encourage them to either get in touch with me, but more specifically, the person who's dealing with this new approach is our Director Compliance and Systems, who is Mr. Alan Mamo. His email address is alan.mamo@gov.mt. Feel free to get in touch with him to obtain more information. What I know right now, because I've been in touch with him this morning, is that there are certain trials underway this week. We do hope to have everything in order within a couple of weeks' time, so that by come 1st January, we will launch this procedure. Fingers crossed that there will not be any technical issues that will hinder the process of this new approach.
Thanks, Ian. Two last questions for David Caruana, and then we'll close today's session. They're asking basically whether, from your explanation, then used vehicles from the UK will be almost impossible to import due to this lack of certification and documentation. And the other question, is there a detailed list on what you were just explaining relating to new and used vehicles. If there's a list in this regard.
Yes. Regarding the list, all the documents are on the web, available on the website. So just on the website, there are documents needed for a non-EU, from a non-EU country, and all the details are over there. Regarding the certificates, we are currently in discussion to see who will participate to issue these certificates. So I think in the first weeks, there will be an appointed body who will certify these vehicles to be imported to Malta from UK.
Thanks, David. Without any further ado, I'll immediately bring today's session to a close. Allow me to once again, of course, thank you all. Thank all the speakers who participated in today's event, especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for their constant support in organizing today's event and for also making the direct contact with today's speakers to get involved in today's session. We hope, of course, that you've all find it informative. I remind you, as Leandro mentioned at the beginning, that for more information, you can also follow the official pages of the Brexit Be Prepared campaign and to access the website www.brexit.gov.mt. There is also direct assistance which is being provided to businesses, both via the Brexit helpline 153 and the email address brexit@gov.mt, where you can basically also ask individual questions, which I assume then they will be signposted to the specific departments. You have also, of course, been given the contacts directly from the various entities that are represented today. You can also approach us at the chamber, by all means, get in contact with us on any issues you might be facing. Even some of the questions we didn't manage to answer during the session, but I believe most were answered. By all means, if you have any other questions after today's session, by all means, get in contact with us. Before I leave you, I would like to remind you of our upcoming events. As part of this series of events, we have now 3 more sessions. Basically, they will be tackling the next one, which is going to be held on Wednesday, the 18th at 2 o'clock. We'll be dealing now with human resources and employment. And there will be speakers from Jobs Plus, NCFHE, and Identity Malta present to answer any of your queries as we did today. So any issues related to posting of workers, both to the UK and UK nationals to Malta, for example, mutual recognition of qualifications, anything to do with HR will be dealt during the session. On the 24th of November at 2 o'clock, we have another session on standards where we'll have speakers from the Malta Medicines Authority and DMCCAA. And on the 30th of November, the last of this series of events, we will basically be tackling issues related to taxation and also business registration and company law on the day. On the 19th of November this week, in collaboration with HSBC, we're organizing a session titled Extraordinary Time Call for Extraordinary Banking, which will focus on digital solutions provided by the bank to help businesses in keeping control over the finances safely and efficiently, while basically reducing the dependency on manual methods of payment, such as cash and checks. And between the 23rd and 25th of November, we have a masterclass, which is a due diligence certified masterclass certification, which will be provided by the International Due Diligence Organization and will also contribute to any accountants in the audience to CPE accredited hours. Of course, I remind you to keep on watching the space of all our activities on all our social media outlets, including the Malta Chamber portal, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and our new members gateway. Without any further ado, I thank you all for staying with us for the whole duration of the session. We've run a bit past our time, and I wish you all a good afternoon. My final parting shot from my side: please get in contact with us or with any of these entities to make sure that you are prepared, of course, for January. And as I started off, I once again urge you to make sure that you are contacting your suppliers or any of the businesses you're dealing with before, of course, the deadline of the end of this year. Without any further ado, I wish you all a good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Ciao, ciao.